you're walking down with the younger version of you, and Sonny is walking down with the younger version of you, and says, so, hey, you know, there's only 3 things you do in jail. What are they? I think it's you fight, you gamble, you play, I don't know what it was.
Lift weights, you play cards, and you get in trouble.
And you get in trouble, yeah. Yes. And he says, what'd you do? He says, I read. And he says, what'd you read? You said Machiavelli.
No.
And he says, what's Machiavelli? He says, Machiavelli was somebody, you know,
right.
And you give the history of it.
500 years ago.
And then he said, so what'd you learn? You said availability.
Yes.
And he said, what do you mean availability? He said, I can live anywhere. Why do I live here? Can you unpack the concept of availability? I mean, it was brief, but I'm curious to know about it more from you.
What happened was the wise guys, especially Sonny, he read Machiavelli in jail. But not just him. Wise guys have read.
Sure.
It's a thing
mandatory.
that they taught. It's mandatory, right? So, and when he explained it to me, I was like, I didn't read it back. I read a little bit back then, but when I started researching it, when I was writing the thing, what I did was I took the Machiavelli principle and I made it into the street language. So what I did was, where he goes availability. Let's say, well, this is actually right from the play. I said availability. He goes, yeah, availability. He goes, I can live anywhere I want to live. Why do you think I live here? He goes, availability. He goes, you see me. He goes, I'm trying to think how he does. He goes, availability. He goes, because the people he goes, a boss always has to be available.
What a freaking lie.
Always. He goes, because the people that see me here every day that are on my side, they feel safe. Mm-hmm. They feel safe.
Do you realize how powerful this is?
And he's saying that they feel safe because they know I love them. But the people that want to do otherwise, they think twice because they fear me. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the people that want to hurt him, when he's around there, it's different. I mean, what I did was I took it and I put it into street terms.
Right. And then in that scene, correct me if I'm wrong, C asked back, well, is it better to be loved
Is it better to be loved or feared?
Exactly.
And he asked that question. And this is a very big topic on this movie.
Right.
He goes, is it better to be loved or feared? And he said, that's a good question. He goes, what he says to me, he goes, that's a good question. He goes, in my world, it's better to be feared.
Right.
Because trouble is like a cancer. When it's small like this, it's easy to cut out and get rid of. But when you're not around to see the trouble, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it eats the whole. You know,
and then you say the trick is not to be hated.
Because that's right. Then he goes, the trick is not to be hated.
Right.
He goes, that's why I treat my men well, but not too well.
Exactly.
I give them too much, then they become independent from me. I give them just enough where they need me, but they don't hate me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
I mean, it's...
I got to tell you something else, too. This is the first movie in my life, back in the day with VHS. My father actually woke me up from sleep and said, come on, you got to come see this. And he dragged me out. We had just moved out of Brooklyn. We were in Jersey. And he played the scene about, you know, the working man is a sucker. A whole powerful scene with De Niro. But also, he swears to God to this day, my father was a Brooklyn Mariner and a Garrettson Beach Husky. And he swears to God from this day that scene with the bikers comes from the Garrison Beach, what they
Let me tell you something. You hear that? When I hear that 20 times a year. This came from 189th Street, or this came from Queens. Yeah, I know that story. Mm-hmm. And I go, no, it didn't. No. Maybe your thing happened there, but no, this happened here. I was sitting at the bar. This happened, you know. So everybody says that.
Yeah.
Everybody says that. Always.
Sonny, in that scene that Pat references with the Machiavelli scene and everything like that, prior to that, like literally the minute before that, your dad, Robert De Niro, drops C off on the bus. He sees you across the street, and he sees Louis Dumps across the street. Where's my $20?
Right.
And you say, "What? This is your friend? You like this guy?"
Well, no, he says, no, he's an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
And he says, forget the 20.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? He goes, look at it this way. It costs you $20 to get rid of him.
To get rid of him out of your life.
He's never going to bother you again. He's never going to ask you for money again. He's out of your life for $20. Forget
exactly.
about it.
He says, you got off cheap.
You got off cheap.
We were talking about this last night about having to pay for situations where, you know, things could get ugly, and it's like, you know, in this case, $20 you got off cheap. Maybe 50 grand you get off cheap.
Right.
You know, 100 grand, the story you told, you could have got off cheap.
Yeah.
What's the money lesson of that? It's just you cut your losses, basically?
You cut your losses, and you know what? He can't ask you for money again, ever. You got to be Machiavelli on these guys. Look, I knew my friends. I knew my friends. I was doing all this in Hollywood. This is a funny story. I'm doing all this in Hollywood, right? I knew my friends were going to ask me for money because it was going to be in the newspapers. It was going to
When
be
you got the million.
When I got the million. Oh, I got more than $1 million.
Now, were they offering you money when you had a broken radiator? Though that's the other side of it.
So I called my friends up before all this hit big, and I went, I'm doing okay, but listen to me. Is it possible you could lend me 10 grand?
Get out of here.
Now I knew there was no way they could give me 10 grand. They were married guys,
Yeah.
The Chazz, I can't. I got kids. I totally understand that. Don't worry about it. I'm just a little desperate right now. Called all 7 of them up.
Wow.
And they asked them for money. Boom. As soon as I got the check, they couldn't ask me for money.
Of course. You Machiavelli
You
Machiavelli. Wow. Wow.
So what's that? They called me up and they said, "Hey, yeah, congratulations." I said, "Hey, yeah, it all worked out. I didn't need the 10 grand. Thanks for
my God.
That's awesome.
There's a guy, I won't tell you who it is, but the only thing I've ever heard that even remotely comes close to that. There's a guy I played ball with.
So sick.
He had been divorced twice and was about to get divorced for the 3rd time. So he was a veteran. Okay.
Yeah.
So he calls every single divorce lawyer in the state, so that when he files for divorce, his wife at the time cannot get a divorce lawyer now because he's already entered into conversations with them. So he literally took 2 days of his life and called 1,000 attorneys.
Veteran.
Because this was his 3rd time. I was like, bro, you really wanted out of that match.
Well, he's an experienced divorcer. If it's your 3rd one, he knows
so
what he's doing.
none of those guys could even attempt to ask you because they already said no.
One guy did, but...
Well, you didn't give me the 10 grand I asked you. Now you need 10 grand.
Yeah, I said, no, you want money now. When I asked you, he goes, oh, come on. I said, no, I can't do it, man. I can't
afford it, Chazz.
That's awesome, Chazz.
Dude, I still can't get over the fact you're in your 30s, you're a struggling actor, man, and you're out there, you're bottom dollar. Somebody wants to buy a script, they want to option your script. That in and of itself is a dream.
Right.
$500,000,
no.
Yeah, you understand that's like hitting on 20, right? Like you're showing 2 kings and you're hitting,
Look,
man.
this only happened 3 times in the history of Hollywood. It happened 3 times. It happened with Sly Stallone.
Rocky.
It happened with me, obviously Bronx Tale, and it happened again with Big Fat Greek Wedding. So it happened 3 times. That's it.
That what?
That where the person wrote the one-person show and actually was in it and it was in the movie. 3 times that happened.
I'm sure it happened a few more times and it didn't end up well, though.
No. At this level.
Yeah.
I'm talking about at this level.
Yeah.
At this level.
Successfully.
Sure.
Success.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.